All right.
Good evening. Welcome to April 16th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting. To get the garbage out of the way, this meeting is being recorded. The listing of matters is those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. We'll call for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So taking the first thing, something that's not on our agenda, we have 3 weeks worth of minutes, 3 meetings worth of minutes here from the 11th, the 13th, and the 18th. I'm just going to give another minute to peruse. Start with any questions over this way?
On the minutes?
On the minutes?
No.
I would have forwarded them over. Yeah. My phone. I'm real good at that.
You just wanted peace and quiet during the meeting.
Quietest my life.
It is. All right.
Peter, we're just gonna go in, go down the sheet in order.
Yeah, I think so. First we'll go through the revenue side of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then propose what we asked for. And then we'll get into the expenses.
Where did we land? One of the things that we had thrown out there a couple times was like a general stipend reduction. Pretty much all the voluntary. Or in a box, whatever. Has that ever landed as like we're gonna pretty much get rid of all of this to save some cash, or was that still kind of up in the air?
So that is in some of the changes.
I saw that from the town administrator, you had
Recommended 50% reduction at the selectmen's recommendation, reduce it by a third.
okay.
30% reduction, so.
Any questions on the minutes? 11th, the 13th, and the 18th?
I make a motion that we vote to accept the minutes as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. Why don't you just forward them to the
Sure
clerk?
will.
Now we'll get into it. Just from a revenue standpoint, I know, Ralph, you guys have been through the revenue side again and between growth and the other receipts, the numbers look good.
Pretty solid. I mean, the estimates we have, and again, we just got the cherry sheets, they just came in, so we'll double check.
Yeah.
Everything else that we looked at, the numbers are getting more and more solid, so we're pretty comfortable with what's being presented.
And do you mind just mentioning to everybody else what the selectmen had come up with ideas for adjustments to the budget?
Right, yeah, at the end of the meeting, there were 3 recommendations that were made And the first, at first blush, it was to put out almost multi budgets, but it really doesn't work out to be. That the first request was to put an article for chapter 5318B, which is Mass General Law allows municipalities who adopt that Mass General Law, that if they do like a debt exclusion or a Prop 2.5, that similar to the state, that the spout would explain what a yes vote is and what a no vote is on the ballot. That does have a cost. The cost is we have to do a mailing and we have to do the printing, but the larger cost for that would be town council reviews, would review the ballot question. They would interview who's a proponent for it, who's an opponent for it, and similar to what the Attorney General does, and do a quick synopsis of the yes and no. So there's a proposal, we have it on as an article on the warrant, two separate articles, one to accept the MGL 5318B, and the second article is for an article to raise funds, so we have it if it's available. We estimated, we still have to get the number back from the town council, and we're thinking that number's mailing in town council about $7,500. The second suggestion was to have cash be an enterprise fund. So and I know there's a little confusion over how an enterprise fund works, but generally speaking, we've been starting to do research on it. We can put on the town meeting warrant as an article to accept an enterprise fund. With that, you would have to put the date where the enterprise fund begins. DLS suggests that the enterprise fund begins at the beginning of the fiscal year. If we move and if that gets accepted, the direction would be to start start the enterprise fund in fiscal year 27. With an enterprise fund, you have to, there's a lot of parts. You have to identify what all the expenses are, what the fees are, and how much do we charge the individual taxpayer? It would be a fee-based service. So we're starting to do our homework on that. And then lastly, the third option was to have a personnel reduction, to have, to put out alternate budgets, the budget, and then in a budget with personnel reduction. So that we're still, the selectmen are still haven't made a determination on that. A couple of things we would look for, the budget, they put their recommendations in as you put your recommendations in tonight. So two options would be, if that's the course they choose to take, there could be not an alternate budget, but an amendment on the floor to the existing budget, or I have to go beat up with town council. If we propose an alternate budget, then the alternate budget was, which, as which one's accepted and how to move forward on that. So we've been working through those questions. Again, I think we have some, a solid answer on one. Option number one, we're closing in on option, what to do with option number two. We are probably going to put that on as an article. We kind of listed on the warrant as an article now. The hope is we have a special selectmen's meeting prior to your joint meeting on May 14th, just sort of spelling out what are the elements of the enterprise fund. And then I think we'll find out shortly, if they are going to proceed with option C, which is personnel reductions for fiscal year 26. All those options that I had presented are definitely options we need to explore, and we will explore quickly as we enter fiscal year 26 for fiscal year 27. As I had laid out, it's definitely going to be a tougher year. We got kind of lucky this year. Our debt obligation to Aggie and to Bristol Plymouth weren't as large as we had anticipated they would be. But we do know that the costs to both those obligations will go up about $100,000 for fiscal year 27. So we are looking at the options, as we go through the summer. Do we want to look at force reduction? Do we want to look at another potential option is, we would have to work with the unions. Nobody gets a raise. That's another option we have to look at. Always, do we look at a debt exclusion? Do we look at a Prop 2.5 override? Do we, or do we move for the enterprise fund for trash, taking trash out of taxes and put it more to a user fee? So that's where we're at.
So to be clear, the trash enterprise fund, so that it would be self-funded.
Yes. The short answer is that's the hope. There are three options as I go. We could self-funded. That's the preferable one. They could run go over, or they could run a deficit and be subsidized by taxes. So there are three options. So usually towns just want to. It's self-funded, not too much, not too little.
What, out of curiosity, moving to the fully self-funded model for trash, how much would that make a fine, like in an estimate of dollars amount on an annual basis? What would the impact be to the town budget?
So we would be taking approximately moving $800,000 out.
So it's a large chunk.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
basically,
It's a large amount.
Well, it's the BP debt now,
It-
right?
it-
no,
Because in 3 years, it's,
we'll be at
in
9,
3 is the
Right.
right?
That is going to be about $874, $900,000.
Yeah, no.
But trash is going
Right.
to happen.
right, exactly.
So it would be very close. They're almost.
But it would make a large impact. And is there an estimate of taxpayer cost per household for something like that yet, or is it still too early?
I would rather say at this point, it's still early. I have a.
That's fine, yeah, I was just curious.
Anybody with.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but some people might find it scary. So we are looking at, I'm using, Mike Mullen, the previous town administrator, had done some work on it. There were some options that he had presented, so we're running through those scenarios again. Do we have, discounted rate for 65 and older, discounted rate for 70 and older?
Yeah.
Household, the household rate, so we have to take a look at.
So that the trash, well, the enterprise article will be on the town meeting.
Yes.
And then is there also on the town meeting will be the article on spending money on allowing that's going to be on there as well. Both will be on.
For the first
53
one,
ABD or
Yes.
ADB?
18B.
18B.
If we move forward with the enterprise fund, and again, there's something we have to work out, probably at the special, we would have to do initial funding of the enterprise fund. So we would have to come up with that number, and that would probably happen. If it gets accepted, we would have to look at that at special town meeting. So we could, and there's a lot of things it's the funding, it's finding out how do we do the billing and just, there's a lot of pieces involved, which we really started looking at.
Mhm.
And you said the exclusion is not gonna be on the town meeting warrant though, right?
The debt exclusion?
Right, not this year,
Yeah.
next year.
I don't know, I have no idea when it's gonna be on. The selectmen haven't made a determination. We were just running through, I presented them with like 5 options, going into fiscal year 27.
Yeah.
Is it conceivable that we get through town meeting, there is no, the trash article gets voted down. Debt exclusion, either way, that they agree to, they were 18B passes, but then we don't get to
Implement it. Yeah.
even moving forward with, because eventually it's gonna have to go to a vote again.
Right.
So it's conceivable that we could get through, we could be sitting here in a year and not have any.
But if we're here, when we're here next year, and we don't have an enterprise fund, and we don't have a debt exclusion, and we don't have a Prop 2.5 or any of those things, we will be faced with a personnel reduction, and that's, in all likelihood, that will be the budget that's presented, personnel reduction
For 27.
for 27, yes.
Which would be a lot of positions to come up with the amount of money necessary.
It is.
That needs to be heard.
It is a lot. We just rough numbers, it would be about 10% of our workforce.
Yep.
And that is maybe
For 27,
for 27.
and then what is it after another 10% the next year, another 20% the next?
No, we would have to, we would have that reduction, and we wouldn't have that spending, and that those funds that would normally go, right, for salaries and benefits would go to paying our debt obligation. So it wouldn't be, it may be another number, but we have to, we have to work through that.
Yep.
So, and we have to look at other options, internally, the options. Do we change the health code, the health insurance ratio to save some money?
Mhm.
Again, do we look at, a reduction in hours, town hall, look at a reduction in increases, 0 increases across the board. But that, again, that would require a negotiation, with the union.
Okay.
Any questions on any of that? No. All right, we'll start going department by department. Anyone have any questions on 113? If there's some that I feel we can group, I'll ask. But definitely stop me if you have questions on one that I'm grouping. So 113, 114, anybody have any questions on either of those? No. Administrator and BOS are a little bit different on the moderator.
Kevin had stated that he was willing to take a 0, so I don't,
But I think it looked like BOS put something back in there, right? Am I reading that correctly?
So this is Rob's. Right. That's the Board of Selectmen.
That's what I'm looking
So
at.
that's-
Yeah, this one's ours.
I need bigger because I'm older and I can't.
I thought that happened.
You did that right. And that's why I asked at the beginning, like where, like, and you said, hey, I just did a 50% across the board for everything. And then BOS did a
So
third.
This is what the selectmen are proposing.
Okay,
See where it says
yeah.
BOS,
Alright.
that's, yeah, that's what we're gonna.
Yeah, so I mean, I would recommend zero. If Kevin's cool.
Have you had feedback from the stipend committees on their feelings toward that?
Generally, no. So there were one or two people that were upset, but I think overall, people kind of are understanding
Mhm.
of the situation we're in.
Woody, before we get into this, you want to give your opinion?
Oh, yeah, good.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I don't believe everybody knows about the stipend, just a small handful of people, the people that are in tune of what's going on. And I don't have a problem with the 1/3 reduction and phasing it out, in a 3-year period, which is fine. But if you want to remove trash curbside pickup, you're looking for a war. I think people pay a lot of money for taxes. It's one of the few services that you can actually see that you get for your tax money. I'm telling you, it's not going to go over good. It's not going to be pretty. You're going to have a lot of upset people. And the other thing is you're going to see dumpsters in front of everyone's yard. When you drive around town, it's going to start to look like Rehoboth. They have dumpsters all over. Nobody closes the covers. Trash blows all over the streets. So, it's your town too, and it's my town. And if you want it to look like hell, well, you go right ahead and make that decision. But I can assure you that the people will not take kindly to it. I understand that we're in a tough financial situation. I think that most of the departments, if not all the departments, could cut more than they've cut. And I think that there's a lot more fat in the budget that we've looked at. And I appreciate everything you've been doing. The finance committee's always done a great job. And I think that there could be more cuts made other than a service that most people expect. And that's about all I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Woody.
Thanks, Woody. I would just like to say, $800,000 is a lot of services to cut and find fat in the budget. Our budget is not that heavy.
We use zero-based budgeting for a reason.
Ralph, do you know the difference between the 50% and the 33% reduction?
Oh, totally?
Oh. No, I'm sorry, not off the, yeah.
No, because they made other changes. as well.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a lot.
I'll try to
Can I,
figure.
can I say something else, if you don't mind?
Go ahead, Woody.
Like the trash bag increases,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be willing to, not me personally, but the people, the residents of town. You want to go up on trash bags some more. You want to increase our taxes a little more, maybe do a 2.5 override, because that's where we're heading anyway. But to take away curbside trash pickup is gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. So.
We're not taking it away, Woody, right?
Well, you're gonna charge us one way or another. So
Right, exactly.
let's say it's a quarterly fee. I'll just throw a number out there, $100 a quarter per household, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why should a household of 2 people pay the same amount as a household of 5 people? Right? And
It
now
gets
you're
very
gonna target the
complicated, yeah.
elderly. What
Well,
about the
that's-
elderly? Do they catch a break or they don't catch a break?
Well, I think that's why we originally were pushing about the increase on the bags, because that you can actually track.
Yeah.
And you could see who uses the most. I don't know how high we're gonna have to raise the
I'll
bed.
be honest. I
But
mean,
I
you
think it's
wouldn't want to
gonna
look
get
inside
high.
my trash bags. It's pretty nasty stuff in there. And I'd be willing to pay maybe $10 a bag.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I don't
whatever.
want to pay, I don't want to pay a couple $100s a month. You know, and then the kid across the street's got 6 kids, you know, and his
Yeah.
mother-in-law, and he pays the same amount.
Yes,
I mean, Woody, we would have rather had the exclusion, man. You know, I mean, unfortunately, it didn't pass.
Well, it's gonna have to pass next time around, and I think, I know this is a recorded meeting, and I'll say it out loud because, I'm not afraid to say it. People are afraid of that debt exclusion because of the way the schools are being pushed on us. And if that debt exclusion passed, then the elementary school would be coming at us and the fire department would be coming at us to have another debt exclusion. So, and people are worried. People are worried. The economic times have been tough on a lot of people, not all the people, but a lot of the people. And I speak to a lot of people,
right.
So I think trash would be a disaster. If you want to go up on trash bags, I would agree to that. You want to go up on my taxes a little bit, I'd agree to that. But that's about the only service you can see. If you call the ambulance, you'll see them too, but they're gonna send you a bill. And we do get some other fine services. We got a great police department, a great fire department, great highway department. All our departments are good, honest, hardworking people. But there is fat in all their budgets. There is fat in all the budgets. And I think people could sharpen their pencils a little more and give up what they can.
Thanks, Woody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. And thank you guys
Yeah.
very much.
Woody gave us an opportunity to do a little quick.
Yeah.
quick math. Thank you, Mr. Woods. It's about an $11,000 difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we want to do you guys want to have a conversation about picking one of those approaches and just kind of,
Yeah, I think whatever we pick for one, we should be across
Across
the
the
board,
board.
so.
I mean, my guts to go with the town administrator's suggestions, but
$11,000 is $11,000.
that's
Yes.
100% agree. Yeah. Right.
I would agree with that.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, so if that case, and we're at 114 with the moderator, you want to move for 250 then?
So basically, for 113 and 114, we could recommend the town administrator's budget.
Correct. I'm on board with that.
Cool. I'm cool with that.
That's in the form of a motion.
Yeah, somebody's got to,
I'd like to make a motion that for departments 113 and 114, we accept the town administrator's recommendations and follow.
a second.
We have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I mean, I would say similarly for 122.
In 122, they did reduce the travel. Number 5710.
Okay. Down in travel, there's a difference between,
Oh, yeah, Board of Selectmen said they would go down to 500, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
so right there, nobody, does anyone have any questions on 122?
No.
So we could take the town administrator's personnel expenses and Board of Selectmen's expenses,
Or just for travel.
because that's the only difference, so we could just.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Can we, is it legal to say like, I make a motion to accept the town administrator's recommendations budget for Department 122 with the exception of 5710 in the form of $500 instead of the suggested $750. Is that allowed?
I mean, it gets a little dicey. I would prefer just doing the. math.
Agree with the Board of
Okay.
Selectmen.
Yeah, and say 186, 172.
Is that, yeah, 186, so yeah, 186, 172.
Yes, and 8 cents.
Okay, I'll make a motion to suggest for Department 122, total sum amount of 186,172 and 8 cents.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? You guys have it? Administrator, did we got the ADA straightened out to the 3215, okay?
Mhm.
Anybody have any questions on 124?
No. I make a motion, we vote to accept Department 124, Town Administrator as presented.
No,
Second,
I'm sorry, you can't say as presented.
Oh.
You have to be specific.
Okay, to a department total of 195,027.09.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion, we vote to accept the administrator's recommendation for Department 131 Finance Committee as per, in the amount of $1,850.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's have it. So I'm just. I mean.
Do we
do
save
bring
this for the
reserve
end?
down? You want to hold off on that?
Yeah, I was very.
We find out what we've got?
I was wary about reducing the finance committee reserves because everyone's budget is so tight. So we did put that back up to the 50. Like, I think it should be at least 50.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote to authorize for Department 132. We recommend the amount of $50,000.
Second?
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Quick question. The 371, is that based on Ralph's number or BOS number?
371 for what?
Where are
Free
you?
cash. You.
Oh, up here.
That's.
Ralph's.
And it's the same. You didn't change that when the BOS did their X.
Okay.
They didn't specify any change in the free cash usage.
Any questions on 135?
Actually, I don't have a question, but this goes back earlier to what I was talking to you about, Peter, because it's all over.
Mhm.
So when I went through this at home, the biggest thing that jumped out at me was the amount of overtime money in this budget. Without snow and ice, because we can't control Mother Nature, it's $642,000 in overtime.
Well,
That's public.
With a-
safety.
No, it's combined departments.
But the bulk of it is public safety.
And it's also contractual, right?
Is it contractual?
Like the police to have an amount of, like, doesn't their contract say they have an amount of overtime hours?
No,
No?
They define overtime and, you know, what it is and what, you know, how long you get it. But they're not contractually obligated to get like, you know, 4 hours of overtime a week or anything like that. So,
It's just budgeted, that's all.
yeah,
Well, it's the
Is it con-
people per shift.
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. Is that
Right.
what's in the contract? We need
That's,
certain,
yes.
So somebody calls out,
Gotcha.
somebody goes in on overtime.
If they can't fill it with a reserve or a call part-timer.
But what about other departments? So like, you know, one of the departments has an administrative assistant that's contracted to work 30 hours a week, but then they give them 50 hours of overtime for the year at $2,000 or $3,000.
So overtime is very rare, like on the clerical side. Usually comes in mostly like payroll, if there's a short week and we're, you know, we only have 2 days to do like 3 days of work. Or if they're trying to like input payroll and there's an issue and then they have to stay late to figure it out. But it's, and then another thing is like the elections, you know, other things that are just outside of the control of the Monday through Thursday. But it's not, I mean, I have the expenses through March, like our particular departments, I can let you know where they stand with.
Overtime?
Expense with overtime, yeah.
So really, this number, there's really no way to, and being new to this, you know, excuse me if I seem green. There's no way to say, listen, you can only have, you have to cut your overtime budget by this year,
Right?
or next year. I don't, it's such a large number.
Yeah, the only restriction I would say is that if somebody did have to work overtime, we can't force them to comp it. We legally would have to pay them if they want to be paid.
Right.
So that would kind of fall on the department head to manage that within their department, whether they stay and do the job and let that person go home.
I'm also thinking back to the fall when Chief McGee, we had that document, remember?
Mhm.
He didn't budget it properly and needed another $11,000 for overtime. You know, do we run into situations like that again?
Not so much on the clerical side, but definitely on public safety side, where they go through so much overtime because of the need to have, to meet force levels, that if we do a reduction in the overtime, and somewhere along the line, they're gonna come back for a reserve fund transfer.
And not to harp on this, but then if you talk about in 27 cutting personnel, then is this number gonna get larger at that point? Because now we don't have enough people and we, you know, I don't wanna, again, trip over $100 bill to pick up, or trip over $100 bill to pick up a nickel here, but it's just something that really stood out,
Mhm.
you know?
Right, I didn't realize it was that much.
Go ahead, Peter.
Any other questions on 135?
No, but thank you for letting me ask about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
anytime, yeah, any questions, that's fine.
Like, I'm gonna ask one more question for that. Are we better off not budgeting, not putting out the full amount? Because then are they more leery of putting out over, are they more critical with the money dollars they have? You know, more stingy or using it more judiciously than if we give them the amount they want? Do you know what I mean?
That's a good point, Sue. So if
Give
you
them
tell me-
some, but maybe not all they want.
Right, yeah.
Because then it is, I mean, you really have to need the overtime.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really seen it being abused at all,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and you know better than us.
It's
but you are more than welcome to.
Yeah, it's a tough call, and I think, where you would, you know, if you see the news, you know, like over time, there was like certain details that a town, a city, a municipality would pay. Or you have officers making arrests at certain times because they know how to work the system you know, to show up to court on their day off.
Oh.
We don't have that much going on. A lot of the overtime we have is to fill force needs. So,
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's remainder at the end of the year, it just goes into free cash.
I'll make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 135, the amount of $174,778.77. Matching the town administrator's recommendation along with the BOS.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. A note or a mark on professional and technical on the assessors, and I don't know why.
Something to do, they were trying to get Bristol County to offer the classes.
Okay. Okay. Free
So they
class,
could, right,
right? I'm gonna assume that she didn't come back with anything on that.
Not that I'm aware of.
So the difference here is just, again,
The stipends.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend the town administrator's recommendations of $221,917.01 for Department 141, Board of Assessors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. By 146.
I had a note that you had said that we could eliminate 5240 instead of having the 200 in place.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
Sorry, under 1465240.
Yes,
I have a note that he had said since the last 2 years, he had the $400 budgeted and never used a dollar. That we could get rid of the 400 entirely. But understand if we just want to go with the 50%, like we are with stipends.
Take it. So we got, he's got. the
he said he doesn't
200.
want it. We'll take it.
But between 145 and 146, we've had 400, 800 a year, and we've used 6250 over the last 3 years. So leave 200 and 145 and call it a day.
Agreed.
It's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for Department 145 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation
Of,
of $113,021.32.
So,
Because we're gonna
The
do,
adjustment was at 146.
because we're gonna adjust 146, exactly,
okay, so you're not making any adjustment to 145?
correct.
correct.
Okay.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah,
100.
but
But taking the 200 out of the 5420 line and
So leaving them two, but only in the 145.
Okay,
Oh, so you're gonna leave it, okay, all right.
So Jake made a motion on to 145.
Seconded,
to
I
the town
second.
Administrator. It's been seconded. Any other questions on that, on that number? All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? So then that adjustment in 146 would bring that number to 106,936.32.
So, okay, I can make a motion to recommend for Department 146, the total amount of $106,936.32.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. Council should be a pretty easy one. I think it's similar to the reserve, but I don't think we want to go under
50.
50. I agree.
I make a motion, we vote to vote to recommend $50,000 for Department 151, Town Council.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just a follow-up on data processing. So this is more software fees, things like that, as opposed to, I always thought data processing that was or the plan was for it to have really any type of computer related, including the maintenance and things like that, but that still seems, that's still spread out among different departments, the computer maintenance.
Yes.
Okay.
And can I just note one thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it 5303?
Mm-hmm.
The VAR invoice, we are exploring adding another module, so that number may increase
And about how much is a module?
$5,000. So we're still exploring that situation, but that may be something that will have to be revoted at the May 14th meeting.
And what is the Vadar again?
It's our like accounting software, so it holds like the residential balances for the real estate and personal property and all.
Just billing, or does it handle your side too?
My side as well, yes. The assessor uses it, I use it, and the treasurer collector's office uses it.
And the module added just for the size of the town or the information going in or something?
I think it's standard for the module that we're looking for.
Is Vadar, is that tied in with building permit side of things too, or no? Okay. So just out of curiosity, how does their information get to you? Permit link?
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that we go with the 71,723.55 for now, and then it potentially needs to be revoted?
Yes.
If that's the case, and there are no other questions, I will make a motion for Department 155 to go with the town administrator's recommendation in the amount of $71,723.55.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Serena, do you know how much you've got through March for 158?
He has kind of halted with the change in the tax payroll laws. So he's only spent $2,000.
2,000 so far.
Yes, through March.
I don't know if we should just cut it more.
I know.
He's not gonna use
I mean,
it.
and he seemed to think that, like that things were under control with the foreclosures and,
Right, because the law, he changed that part of
and he
the
was working with
town
more
code or
people.
whatever, right?
Right.
I think that's why he reduced it down to 7,500 to give him some money once, everybody figures out how
And
they're
that's-
gonna implement the new tax rate laws.
That's 50, cutting 50%.
Right, yeah. And again.
Can
if
we
he-
bring him down
if
to
he doesn't-
5,000?
Right, that's what I was
Can we
thinking, that was
bring him
my
down to 5,000?
I think it depends on like how many he has on the books that he would need to move over.
Right.
You can't move some and not all for the year.
Do you want to put it further down?
What's usually the charges incurred with, say, one property?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't do any of that.
Okay.
I know there's like $100 or $106 for the registry of
Yeah, the
deeds.
registry.
But I think he has
Advertising.
to advertise in the newspaper as well. Send a letter in the mail to everybody.
So even up to now, up to this March date, he's only used like 2,000,
Yes.
He really hasn't spent anything since in calendar 25.
right? Take the jump.
You think about dropping it to $5,000 instead of 7,500,
Yeah,
a little bit more?
That's good.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion for Department 158 to recommend the amount of $5,000.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 161.
I have kind of a silly question, for this, not only this department, but others. On the postage, years ago, when I had a Pitney Bowes postage contract, I'm gonna assume that maybe that's what the town has. You, depending on how much postage you used, you would get money back. Do you know if the town has something like that or no?
I have not seen money come back from Pitney Bowes, no.
Because they used to have contracts like that where if you were gonna use so much in postage, they would give you so much back in postage to be able to use. I don't know if it's something in the future that somebody could look into, but I
I
know,
can note that for Paul to look into.
yeah, I know that that was once something Pitney Bowes
That's great.
did do. So,
Never know.
yeah,
Doesn't hurt to ask.
thank you,
So
Sabrina.
like they give you agree up front to a bulk amount. And
Yeah, like if they look at your account and go, well, you know, you spend this much on postage this month, every month. And so based on that, we'll go ahead and give you this much back on to use for like free postage type of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, again, it was something that they used to do. They may not do it anymore, but I recall having a contract like that at one point.
Cool.
Do we have an update on the revenue of the dog licenses? Do we know?
there was an email.
There was.
I know that there was one, I think it was
After our first meeting.
after our first meeting, she sent out where they were year to date.
Yeah.
Right.
But I know that they were looking for like a little bit of an inflection. I think, what was rabies, did the rabies clinic already happen? Or is that not yet?
May 1st.
So I think she said that that was a driver, so there's probably not an update then.
I see that they brought in about 4,100 through the end of March.
How much?
4,100.
4,100.
Well, you know what's helping to drive that too, especially this year and probably next year, is the fact that BA is now has a vaccine clinic and stuff there.
Yes. They just didn't they just run a clinic? Was it a rabies?
No, not that kind of clinic. They're actually doing like,
Oh, as part of the school curriculum?
yes.
Okay.
And I only know that because the director just put in his resignation and I'm trying to hire him to work. So I think, you know, doing services over there for the public as far as like rabies vaccines, you know, then people are having to get their town licenses as well. So that might be helping to drive that number a little bit.
Mm,
Yeah, so they send out reminders April 21st. I'm looking at Shara's email. So that she sends out reminders on April 21st. That fees go up on May 1st, and that typically is a driver.
Oh, yeah.
Last year they had 607 licenses. And they already have 601 this year. And you said they're at 41-ish, and when she sent this on March 13th, they were only at 3,600, 3,676. So, yeah, I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
It'll probably be, we're out where they were last year. Okay, just curious.
Any other questions on 161?
No, I make a motion. We vote to recommend for Department 161, the town clerk, the amount of $156,749.51.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The big discrepancy on this one was professional and technical, 5,300. Where the Board of Selectmen recommended significantly less. I didn't have any notes as to why they did that.
I don't know if you remember when General was here, she wanted to do the additional poll pads for.
That's right.
And then then she sent the memo that she could, it was a want more than a need,
Okay,
so.
so yours still has the poll pads in.
Mine still has a little,
Okay.
and the selectmen's recommendation does not,
Okay,
and she was okay with the.
but then not, okay.
Okay.
And are you too?
That's her job, she knows it, and if she's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Okay,
So in this case, I guess I'll make a motion for Department 162 to recommend the Board of Selectmen's recommendation in the amount of $20,312.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nice have it. Three. Got no notes.
Don't even.
I have nothing.
Any questions on that?
Nope. I make a motion, we vote to recommend the amount of $8,600 for Department 163 registration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You guys have it. Conservation. I guess the biggest question here was after the budget, they came asking for more hours, but that's not, that does,
The selectmen did not
okay.
recommend that.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Department 171, the Conservation Commission, the amount of $63,454.30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. 174 has no,
I was gonna say, do we have to vote on it if there's no budget? Right?
no, we just passed,
There's no-
right? 174 doesn't have anything, we just passed.
Right, because they submitted 0 as well. Yep.
175.
Stipends again, all right?
Besides the stipends, I don't have any comments.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion for Department 175 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation in the amount of $53,399.30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nice have it. 176. Roughly the same.
Mhm.
Stipends again.
Yeah.
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion for Department 176 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation in the amount of $33,785.29.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nice have it. 179 has a town administrator recommendation, but nothing for Board of Selectmen. Is that because the request came in late?
Oh, the Board of Selectmen reviewed it and they didn't see, they were unaware of anything that the agricultural Commission was doing because it really hasn't done anything in a while. Through zero. I. Nominal, but it's not zero.
You know, there's a lot of things that are short dollars that I think are like a really positive impact, and the garden. They donate all the food to the Council on Aging. They don't like,
Right, I think, but the garden isn't like.
Gardens in Park and Rec now, right?
Yes.
okay,
Kevin's
Yes.
area
Yeah,
now.
Kevin's
Yeah.
got that now.
okay, so then is this,
They're just asking, the budget was for communication.
oh, sorry, you're right, I read that wrong.
Yeah.
Was the other, so I was thinking of the Briggs Garden, okay.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't remember why then.
Mhm. I would like to go with the Board of Selectmen. Everybody's on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would like to suggest that we vote for Department 179. We recommend the amount of 0 along with the Board of Selectmen. Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Let's have it.
totally read that.
189.
They're definitely using their budget. I'd like to make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 189, Dayton Economic Development Committee, the amount of $900.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public buildings. Serena, do we know where we are through March for energy?
Um, 100,000.
Then just,
$114,000.
is that the 52, 10, 16, and 17?
Mhm.
And 19 for
And 19.
fire.
Okay. And is that, because we pay the energy bills after, so that's really 8 months, not 9 months.
Right.
Okay.
Do we know when the term date is for the library modular?
He said September open. He was pushing hard for it. But I don't think they had set a firm date at this point in time.
I would assume though the modular is gonna be empty before the open house.
Oh, right, because you're moving all the books over way before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, obviously, you know, he put in 8,600 here.
He did say he did a calculation based upon, it was based upon the number of months in this upcoming fiscal that he anticipated needing the modular for. I do remember him saying that. I don't remember the,
I mean, at our discussions, he's prorate the module to meet the cost to match the months they're gonna need the module.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm gonna assume this is probably prorated to July. Because we don't meet until next month to discuss this, so I don't know where he's at with it, so,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, that looks like that would probably be October-ish. 86, 20,000.
Yeah. Okay,
Which,
I don't, the problem is I haven't talked to him, so I don't know.
right, because if the units are gonna be empty,
Right.
why are we? What if?
Right,
Everything's moved out of there by the end of August at the latest, if he's planning on a fall opening. Oh, but fall is like September. October.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah. I think he budgeted appropriately for it if I.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering because I haven't talked to him, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
Is there a,
And the
do we know
only,
what the $800 groundskeeping difference is on
Yeah.
that? Between?
the
yours and-
discrepancy,
Oh, they decided to, decided to cut it just because they were wondering if it was, trying to come up with a number, for the groundskeeping, for grass and flowers and have to sort of trim it a little bit. So I didn't hear anything from Mr. Perry regarding the reduction adversely affect groundskeeping, so.
Okay. Less mulch.
right?
Have T-Scoops donate some. So that's the only difference, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go Board of Selectmen recommendation, you think in this case?
I would like to go that
if he
way.
didn't-
Yeah. me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I will make a motion to recommend for Department 192, the Board of Selectmen's recommendation for $254,800.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nice have it.
I do have a question with the town reports. Are they all picked up at town meeting? So are we printing less this year?
That's the intent. Where is that?
Right, they said.
Sit around, yeah.
So are we doing like? How much less are you hoping to do, percentage wise, print? 25% less, or?
It's like 50 was the budget.
I know,
Yeah,
They didn't really come up with a booklet number amount, just to reduce it by half.
well, has anybody,
Do you know how
gotten a
many?
percentage of, yeah, how many were
What do we
used and
usually-
how many we're holding on to for fire?
no, we could figure that out, yeah. Well, if we have any, I think the intent was to have printed ones, and if anybody else direct them to get an electronic version of it. So
Perfect,
that was the intent.
okay. Yeah, which I think most people would be happy with. Okay. I'd like to go with the Board of Selectmen's number.
Cool. You want to make that?
I will make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 195, the town reports the amount of $1,000 following the Board of Selectmen recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nice have it. How's that?
Okay, so here's actually the question that I had on this now that we're digging into this whole overtime thing. Because now we're coming into public safety, right, which is where the vast majority of the overtime dollars are spent. Do we have, do we know where they are year to date for this year for overtime expenditure?
I have it through the end of March.
Perfect,
Okay,
amazing.
The end of March, they spent $236,443, but they actually did go into the negative the first few payrolls in April.
What is,
So I think
what do you mean by
I
that?
think they're like, they overspent their budget. I want to say maybe 2,000 or 3,000, including the first two payrolls in April. So as of like today, they spent probably 263,000. It's already over budget with that line this
and we are only in
Still.
April.
year, in April.
Yeah.
But overall, that's money in other lines. So we are watching it very closely to see exactly where it's gonna fall at the end of the year.
Just to piggyback on your question before,
Yeah.
the public safety is 600 at 640.
What's the negative 144 under the full-time officer? What was that for? that reduction there.
Which one?
See, this one here,
Can you give me a number?
143,2809.
No,
The
no,
four-digit total.
the 4-digit on the way to the left. 51.
5106.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, yeah.
Was that was pulling the deputy chief out?
And then moving him up and giving him his own line item there at the 105,464, is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Think so.
He now has an individual contract.
And I think I was talking to, I spoke to the chief today. We used to have there was an open line for an open officer.
Right.
5106. He said that is basically, that number's gone, that spot is not in his budget for 26. So that
Okay.
that more than likely be what that difference is between the 105 and the 140.
Okay.
So this is like one of those weird things, right? Because I don't know if I'm putting my foot in my mouth, but like overtime by definition is 1.5 time or more, right? So hour per hour, having that as a full-time officer, I would love to understand, because I understand there's benefits costs for an additional full-time officer and things like that, but like, is having an additional officer less money than having the same amount of hours done in overtime? You know what I'm saying? Because I get there's more, like if you have, again, I know there's like benefits costs and workers' comp, all that other stuff.
Yeah, so the health insurance wouldn't change, but your workers' comp would probably go up and the pension.
little bit,
Pension
yeah.
contribution would go up.
Right. So that's why I'm like, he says he doesn't have a line item, but he's over on overtime. And so that's why I'm like, if it's all even, then whatever.
So
Like,
Jake, what you're saying is what would the total package be for one officer versus paying?
For the same, right.
For the shortage of.
Exactly, 100%. Like if you take a 40-hour work week at 1.5 times is really paying 60 hours, right? So, but what is that cost? And that's just in payroll for overtime, because you already think they already got their benefits, they already got the pension, they already got all that stuff.
Right.
So
It's a good question. I mean.
that's my question is like, I would love to understand, is $1 cheaper in another full-time office, or is an hour, another 40-hour week officer cheaper than 40 hours of overtime?
Wasn't his problem that he couldn't find anybody to fill the position?
The reserves.
Reserves, yeah.
Not taking them, so then it would be whoever, and the salaries do vary a lot between the officers, depending on their degrees and
Mm-hmm.
all the little extra things within their base wages, so.
I'm assuming that the way the contract is, the ones that cost more are the first ones that have the opportunity to grab overtime.
The more senior officers have an
Yeah.
opportunity to. It's interesting. Sometimes the addition of one officer may not change the overtime ratio, because it's just, I don't want to say it's just one officer who is substitute, right? Who can go to court, who can get hurt, so you'll have the same amount of overtime. But sometimes, you get officers who dislike overtime and just don't want to do it, and then you're forcing overtime on some officers. So maybe the junior officers, you would be at a lesser overtime.
Right.
rate, Where you have more experience on, they have the education benefits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, I guess that's a variance, right? Because like hiring a newer officer is obviously going to be cheaper than hiring somebody that's been on a force for 15 years, right? Like, not
Depends on the education.
Right, yeah.
interesting.
So, having one more may not make that much of a difference. You have to do force calculations, so.
So he came in at 273 for the overtime. You recommended 270, knowing that now they're over the 260 in April of this year. You still think 270 is
But there's money that's still in their budget in other places.
I understand that, but
Yeah, it was a discussion we had with the chief, and he offered up to do the 270, so,
Okay.
so that's why, that's why I put it in at that amount, so.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
Okay.
was thinking that maybe it should be a little higher.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to understand,
And that's why it wasn't,
because, if we put in a number and they blow past it, what's it matter?
we want to put in a reasonable number.
Right.
That's a discussion we have with each of the department heads, I did make a request to make a cut, but you have to give me reasonable cuts, so,
Because these numbers were January,
Right.
February.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as they don't look for another car this year again. We ain't got it.
Nope.
We don't got it.
He took that off.
Okay, we cool with the town administrator's recommendation then? I can make a motion.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one quick question.
Yep.
Why is the, what's the deal with the harbor master? How's that?
Oh,
you mean why they're in here?
Yeah,
They used to have their own budget, but
department. Oh,
yeah, their own department. And it was basically the harbor master, the assistant harbor master and maintenance
Okay,
supplies and
mhm.
we got moved into public safety because I think basically at the end of the day, the chief ended up being responsible for them being on the water anyway.
okay.
Yeah, they moved that.
That makes
last year, right?
sense.
They moved that last year.
Was it just
I
last
think it
year?
was just happened, yeah. Like I remember the budget from last year had its own item.
And then this is gonna sound silly, but does the police department have a contract with any of the local gas stations in town for a discounted rate? Do we know? Or did they just go wherever?
Nope, we have, a WEX bill, so it kind of acts like a credit for the station.
Okay,
And then they go to like that one particular station to fill up,
okay,
and then we pay that bill on a monthly basis.
okay.
But back to the harbor master, they're down, there's only one assistant this year, so that's why it's $522 instead of two assistants.
Oh, so it's just the two of them now? The harbor master and the assistant?
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion for Department 210 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation, the total of $1,996,451.66.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, opposed?
At the risk of repeating myself, less about the overtime in this one. I'm curious. Having additional full-time operators where right now we have part-time communications people. Is that a purposeful choice, or is it just kind of they don't need as many full-timers?
Since I've been here, they've run that department with 4 full-timers and then part-timers.
From our first ledger report on March 5th, there's been a $22,640 jump.
Yes, that's the part-timer salary. When we initially sat down, they do have some grant money, so the town administrator, I had suggested to reduce it, and then speaking with them and their plans for those grants. And it's not guaranteed every year. I felt that we did need to fund it a little bit more and to not rely on the grant just in case.
And you said the grant was 33, possible grant, $33,000?
Yes.
So if we get the grant this year for $33,000,
So, yeah, I'll just make a point about that. So in the past, they had always applied, when they applied for the grant, they applied all for salary.
Yep.
And now, between the, because it's communication, so it's, a little bit of joint fire and police. So I think for the next year's grant, they're gonna change what they actually are applying for. So the full 33,000 will not be for salary. They have other plans to use the grant money for.
and what is that?
When is that?
What do they want to use it for?
I think some of it was equipment within the office, something about a power supply. And that's all.
Okay, so these are for fire and police.
Yeah, because the dispatchers, they dispatch, and they dispatch for highway as well.
So they cut their budgets in other places. Now we're playing it again here.
More than likely, we will have some budget money, for some grant money for the part-time salary. But not as much as I
Okay,
originally thought.
okay.
And then why is there such, on 5870, the replacement equipment? So in 24 it was high, but year to date, it's not much, but then they want 4,600.
I have a
Was there
note, they-
about that?
Yeah, they need to purchase a recorder.
Oh, okay.
Is
All
that
right.
correct?
Is that correct?
That's what they submitted on the zero-based budget. We
Okay.
haven't discussed it since then.
They have the portable radio incremental upgrades.
Okay.
An office chair.
And an office. Oh, everybody set?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 215, the Communications Department, the amount recommended by the town administrator, $423,186.04.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? For fire, you guys are still working through the salary number?
The 5870 replacement equipment, they had asked for 10, both town administrator and BOS said 19, was just.
So we increased what we're taking from the ambulance fund. Originally it was 455, so we decided to take 475 of the additional funding to go to both the replacement equipment and the fire department, and, also on the ambulance. They were cutting it pretty close, so again, we appreciate, but sometimes we have to be a little more realistic, so we had available funding in the ambulance fund to help support that.
So is this additional 9 coming from the ambulance fund?
Yes.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
okay.
We can only transfer from the ambulance fund at this
Town meeting.
town or that annual expense.
So that'll be a warrant item then.
It'll be within the motion for the budget, like when we get to the public safety, it'll say,
It'll say from the ambulance.
Okay,
Because it's 475,000 is in the budget as a transfer from the ambulance fund.
On that one-page document.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay.
This will end up being one of the lines that, maybe not at the May 14th, but maybe right before the town meeting. We might have to revisit the fire. Still going through the salaries, make sure. they're
Ah.
accurate.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 220, the fire department, the amount recommended by the town administrator of $836,013.38.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Then I had the same note, and I assume it's the same answer.
Department Medicals, yeah. I was feeling generous that day.
Eminence pays for itself, right?
Close.
Close. It's not as detrimental as it could be. Right?
So I've got a question. The ambulance fund basically covers its own services. There is ambulance charges should somebody use their services.
Correct.
Correct. Does it cover the total cost of this department?
No, it does not bring in $872,000 a year.
Okay. And so that the funds then collected by the ambulance fund are put into,
A special revenue fund.
okay,
For the most, I mean, the 475 doesn't include the transfer for the lease payment.
It does not.
So that would be, you transfer that on top of. the
That
general.
will be at the special town meeting. And we're gonna see how the ambulance fund looks at that point, or use a different funding source.
Usually we try to use the ambulance.
Yes, for the ambulance, and then I believe he'll still have a truck.
Right,
Yes,
third,
So that's-
fourth year in that, third or fourth year,
Yeah,
third or fourth, I can't remember.
yeah.
yeah, so it should, I think the ambulance is like 145,000 for that lease. Yeah, so that, yeah, I'll definitely find the ambulance one.
mhm. I'd like to make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 231, the ambulance services, the amount recommended by the town administrator of $872,395.07. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. I am gonna group some of these here, even though we're moving on pretty well. 241, 242, 243, 244, and 245.
Oh, you couldn't make it so they're all on the same
I know, I
page,
try, I
right?
wanted to.
Shoot.
He's tricky.
No discrepancies. Any questions?
Nope.
I'll make a motion for Department 241 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation in the amount of $181,433.51.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll, Jake.
242, 243, 244, and 245, Jake?
I was just about to say, yeah, we're gonna just lump them together. I'll make a motion to recommend for departments 242, 243, 244, and 245, the town administrator's recommendation in the department total of $20,000.
20 is just.
Sorry,
Just-
and sorry, in the amount of 6,750, 7,750, 2,000, and 20,000 respectively.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. 292.
I only have one question on the animal control
Building
officer.
repairs.
Was the reduction in contractual disposal? between her request of 1,500 and the town administrator's recommendation of 1,000. Just want to make sure that was allowed because it was labeled as contractual disposal, so I wasn't sure if that reduction was allowed. Sorry, it is 5315.
So it says, sorry,
Okay.
do you want to?
No, that's good.
It says contractual as the name of the expense line, but it's actually to the vendor final gifts. So it's.
When her
Disposal?
freezer fills, they've got to come pick it
Pick it
up.
up.
With.
But the
Contracted too.
highway's been picking up more
All right,
so
so
that she doesn't have to. and
Stop hitting deer. This line item will go down.
Those similar wrestling outfits on them.
If you see an animal on your street, please take up the shovel.
Goody.
Oh, God.
Building repairs, 292.
Was it, yeah, the power washing, right?
She got it done. It looks really good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know if she did it herself or,
No,
no,
we paid.
oh, it looks really nice. It's not green
Good.
anymore. It was very green, trust me.
It's not covered in lichen anymore. That's great.
everybody all set with that?
Yes.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 292, the Animal Control Officer, the Town Administrator's recommendation of $62,812.22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice have it. 294. Is that a stipend?
Yes, it's paid out in June.
So then should that be halved instead of? Was the Board of Selectmen have it?
They reduced it.
By a third.
By a third,
I-
yeah.
I try to get all, so it might have been a small one that I missed it.
How dare you? All right, so what is, someone do calculator math.
Yeah.
What is half of the
275.
275.83?
141.40.
41 for
Yeah.
141.41.
140, 140.
Zero. It's 0.39.
Gotcha. Great. I'll make a motion for Department 294 to recommend the budget in the amount of $141.40.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nice have it. 99.
The emergency preparedness, the communications, is that the
That's.
one call or?
Code red, yeah.
We don't want that to be used.
Yeah.
Something bad has
So
happened.
That's different than the one call.
is code red one call?
I have no idea.
When,
Say
when you
it's
do the mass
software,
calling in
so-
town.
Yeah, I don't believe it is. We could look into that. I know that the code red. It's their software.
They're different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, well, I don't know what code red would be. I thought it was that.
I thought code red was the alert you get on your phone when you sign up for the town. It gives you a code red, like if you sign up on the town's website and you sign up for code
No.
red, No.
It does do that. In addition, it also can call you, email you, text you. I'm not sure exactly what the differences are between the two, but I know that there are differences.
okay.
Yeah.
That's why I feel.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Department 299, emergency preparedness, the amount of $4,000 is recommended by town administrator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Dalton. God.
So I've got a question this, especially for the DR budget. State, the new amounts are coming out, what state funding is gonna be. That should come out before, what's the latest they can send that out?
I think the latest they could send out is fiscal June.
June.
Yeah, the final budget comes, the state budget comes in after town meeting typically.
Okay. So,
What do you think?
If
We
anything changes, they
yes,
don't necessarily change theirs.
assessment.
You know when Rehoboth's town meeting is?
No.
Did they try to pass the exclusion too? Do you know?
I don't know.
I believe they tried and they did not.
Yeah, it's
They
gonna.
are
Same as us.
paying, right, they're paying, the debt obligation within the tax.
I mean,
For finance committee meetings tomorrow night, we wanted to watch.
I've got a question, the 226 next to the 5690 DR assessment. That's because that's when it was voted, last voted, this assessment?
In this version, I believe that's what it was.
That's the data I received, the information.
That's the date you received the,
And then this one's the updated. To the- From the meeting after they came in.
okay. Thank you.
Peter, what's the out of district obligation?
So we had a child in town for a couple of years that was going to Aggie, non-BA school, not Bristol Aggie, Norfolk, not Norfolk.
Yeah.
And she was a foster child
this
in
her
town. We had to
senior?
pay for her to continue to go to school while she was,
She no longer lives
she's
in-
great, she's graduated.
Oh,
Oh, I thought she graduated.
Yeah, she graduates this year.
But she had moved out.
She had moved out.
Oh, she had moved out too?
before
Alright.
graduation.
Okay.
Yes.
So this could be for a special education program, out of district placements.
Okay,
Normally it would go through the
right. All right.
special ed.
Oh, I found it, June 3rd.
Oh, right, for only a week.
And just so everybody has an idea on the special education costs within the district in the DR budget last year, or special education costs in general this year have gone up 26%.
For this year.
Current year or next
or
year?
last.
They were up 26% this year, and they've been going up continually.
Yeah, because I actually attended last year's meeting at the school and was blown out of my seat. Pretty much.
Right, so
Is that
we have to
mostly
contact,
placement?
yeah, it's placements, it's the transportation, and really, the school districts have no say.
Right.
And the costs are going up by double digits,
Yeah.
percentage wise, year
Yeah.
to year. So yes, we've got to contact our states people and let them know. These are mandates given, and yes, we want to educate these children, but there's got to be some limits to cost,
Right.
or some reimbursement to help us pay for it.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah.
Any further discussion on Department 300? We complained for a while. If you want, we can keep going, but strictly from a budgeting perspective.
Let's wait till the audit hits. What do you think?
I will make a motion for Department 300 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation of $15,465,211.10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Just gonna say
Yeah.
That mean with the dogs in the house that's on fire.
Oh, yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
Look the other way.
Any questions on 422?
Real quick, 51, 54, and 51, 57. He was given money last year, but it doesn't look like he's used it, but he's asking for the same thing again.
Those are paid out in June.
Oh, they're paid out in June,
Yep, and
okay.
the contract is actually expiring, so they're negotiating. So that's why like the salaries are the same as 25.
Okay, thank you, Serena.
Would we have no gate when unions are negotiating? Are you giving them some direction on what a percentage raise? Well, what's the town is capable of paying as far as these? They're all 3-year contracts, correct?
Yes.
When the unions negotiate. Are we giving them something like we should be in the 2% to 2.5% range?
I think
And-
I have the same question. It's like who's representing us in the union negotiation?
In the highway,
Oh, you're in the hot seat?
it is myself, Chair, Select Chair Peter Karen. So representing the town and Karen Brady. So there are guidelines which we follow. I can't, we are in the middle of negotiations because I can't say what numbers, but very, what we're looking at very similar to what similar contracts.
Mhm.
That we have with-
I missed my opportunity when we just did education. I would like to say that I hope, in the past, I think we had a more fluid conversation with our school committee members. I know you talk with the superintendent and you guys have a good relationship, but our elected school committee members represent us and our town. And I think their aim is to provide a good education to our student body at a cost that the town can afford. And I think having a better conversation with these members would give them a better idea of what our restrictions are on our spending and what would be feasible for them to support in their capacity.
I tell you, I hear what you're saying, and we kind of started, it was my intent to start that when we had about a month, 6 weeks ago, or probably more, 2 months ago, we had a few members of the school committee here, along with the superintendent and the selectmen, just to start, obviously to start that relationship. So they know we wanted to have a friendly conversation,
Correct.
and that's our intent, and that was our intent 2 months ago, and to continue to
Right.
to move forward.
I also reached out to one of the members, someone I had worked with in the past, and yes, on the same idea, let's just have a fluid conversation so we know where both sides are standing.
Any other questions on 422?
No.
make a motion for Department 422 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation in the amount of $747,769.83.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, can I ask one more question?
Yep.
So 5303 under 422, we're looking at off-duty police details. So this is not overtime on the police stations
Nope, that's
docket, it's strictly personal, like a personal second job for them.
picking up a detail. Yep.
Thank you.
Actually, I have one other quick question.
Sure.
What was the $36,000 reduction for
Got a number?
on 422? Sorry. 5530.
Eliminating.
Oh, you're-
Line painting, so they went.
Yeah.
So are they gonna need that back next year?
Yeah, depends how the lines hold up, but in all likelihood, again, that's why we, squeeze them for fiscal year 26, and there are a few things that are happening again in fiscal year 27. Line painting, the assessors, they have their biannual thing that they have to do. This year, we don't have an election, the fiscal year 27 is no election, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion. We vote to recommend for Department 422, the highway construction and maintenance under highways, the amount recommended by town administrators, $747,769.83.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's have it. 423, 50,000. Everybody knows why that's
Mhm.
50,000.
I make a motion. We vote to recommend for Department 423, snow and ice control, the amount of 50,000 is recommended by town administrator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
On the Berkeley Bridge. Do we see any, other than utility payments on the bridge, are there any projects lined up for that?
That's why, other than constant base up and just some basic repairs and maintenance, lights. But select one decided to reduce the budget by half to 800.
They put it all under energy.
Utilities, yeah.
Is
Well, under
the
energy.
extra in energy needed?
At the end of March, energy expense is, so 8 months, $650.
Okay.
Okay. So then 800 is more realistic of a number now.
I'd like to make a recommendation that for Department 429, the Dayton Berkeley Bridge, we go with the Board of Selectmen's recommendation of $800.
Second.
All in favor? Nancy?
You are aware that the town of Berkeley reimburses the town of Dayton, so it doesn't make sense to cut this. If that's what Tom says he needs, and quite frankly, anything that happens to that bridge falls to Dayton. And Berkeley gets billed, including energy. So if Tom is budgeting, and he asks for this amount of money, I would suggest you go with it. Berkeley reimburses us
What, 50%?
based on what gets billed, the energy.
So we split it. Is that what you're saying? Berkeley, Dayton, 50/50?
But Tommy, if anything happens, like if the light goes out or something, and we
Yeah.
had to have an electrician go because there was problem with wiring for a while.
Yep.
So all I'm saying to you is you need to be aware that even if you give him the whole 1,600, there's money coming back from Berkeley.
Okay. Thanks, didn't realize that.
When is the last time the repair and maintenance has been used? I don't see any expenditures in 25 or 24 or 23 for that line item.
The last thing I'm aware of is the problem with the wiring. There was a light that was out for a long time, and I think it finally got resolved because the town, Dayton's electrician, was hired, and I think he had to troubleshoot it, and it was difficulty finding the problem. So that was probably the last time. But again, we got money back on that. We didn't put the whole bill.
So just to be clear, we do get the money back, but that goes into a revenue, a general fund revenue line. We don't deposit the money back into the expense line. So on the expense side, we do have to upfront the total cost.
Okay.
But she does make a great point about the repairs to the bridge.
So if we went with the realistic Board of Selectmen energy estimate of 800. What if we put 500 in the repair and maintenance just to have it? It doesn't sound like it's very often used. But it would at least have something there as opposed to nothing.
You said 1,300 and.
So it would be a total of 1,300. That's my thought process. Even
Want to amend?
well, can we just make the recommendation of 1,300?
We didn't vote.
Did we vote?
No. right?
No.
Okay, yeah, no.
Almost, but not.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll make a motion for Department 429 to recommend the total amount of $1,300, 800 for energy and 500 for repair and maintenance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Yes.
432.
Any questions?
I just have one question on the contractual disposal line item, 5315.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't expended any this year, it looks like. Is that just because we're waiting for a bill?
I think that comes in the spring.
You're doing your basin cleaning and yeah, that kind of stuff.
So it's coming. Okay. Thank you.
And the gunk that comes out of there is considered hazardous. That's why we went to contract. Because if we did it, it had to pay to have it disposed of. It's very expensive to dispose of hazardous waste.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 432, street cleaning and stormwater, the amount of $2,049 and $185.20 is recommended by the town administrator and BOS.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Not privatized, unfortunately.
I have a question. The comment came out, $85,000 in bag receipts. Was that in addition? Was that a result of the new prices and in addition to what had been happening? Because the bags would only been up like the last, what, 3-4 months?
It's an estimate for
For the total year?
the total year. Yeah, we took, and it's, we had a number, that's 75% of the number that we had determined that it would be, so.
Okay,
We didn't take the full number, just to be on the safe side.
That's the estimate for this coming, for the cost of bags cost 40, we get 85. Is that the thought process? For
Um,
5581 trash bag line item.
so it would be, the anticipated revenue, for the additional cost of the bags would be, $85,000 more than, what we, over the old price.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
okay. So
What is,
you're right, what's the total? So
right, so that's why I
so
was
how
like,
many
what's?
times we have to multiply that to get to our 800,000?
Basically, it's like $10.
Well, that's what,
Woody
What he
said
said he
he's
was
cool with
willing to
that,
pay
so
then.
I don't know.
Well, he can pay for it.
He even said he paid more tax.
Yeah.
right, on top of the
We're
10.
gonna hold him to
Okay.
Put him out front.
that.
He's our poster child.
That's right.
I need Woody holding the sign out front.
Okay, that was, so the 85 was an addition to what we normally get.
Right.
Thank you.
And on that, with that increase, do we have an estimated annualized revenue from the bags for next year? Not just the incremental 85, but what it would totally be?
Yes, I don't have it.
If you, okay, yeah,
Okay.
again, yeah, just to Sue's point, like, where's
We
the?
included that in on our revenue side and for our, we did, hold on. $215,000.
Okay.
Been collecting, yeah.
That wouldn't be bad.
Really, it's more of a 6
100
and change.
Yeah, unless we could figure out how to do a bag for recycling.
Yeah, that, I know the recycling kills us. At the same time, it's like if you charge them for it, nobody's gonna recycle, you know what I mean? That would just not happen. But
Okay. That was my only question.
was this in contract negotiations? How's that going?
Yeah, we're in the process of this. And so the so the
How's that
numbers
going?
you see
Yeah.
are very close, are very, very close to the numbers.
Okay.
That's gonna wind up being,
And how long is the contract we signed?
it's gonna be for 3 years.
Thank you.
Questions on 433?
I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Department 433 sanitation, waste collection and disposal, the amount of $846,000.90 as recommended by Town Administrator and Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I just noticed the discrepancy between the requested 5105 for the landfill attendant. They had requested 19,329.66. Both town administrator and board of selectmen had put in 19,811.99.
I can speak to that. So that attendant is outside of the union. And the BOS had voted to give everybody 2.5, so we gave him 2.5%.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was more hours or if it was something, you know, I just wasn't sure. I did also thank you for the transfer station receipt information a couple,
Yes.
like last month. It does look like there was an incremental increase in receipts, which is good. I didn't do the dollars and cents math to determine whether that was like a big win, something to maximize further or not, but it was better than nothing, I guess.
Okay, so not to, it's a dead horse here. He's non-contractual. He's not full-time, correct?
Those, the overtime, not for him.
It's not,
For highway.
it's for highway,
If he's
okay.
not there, then highway.
Highway takes over, okay.
Covers the hours, yeah.
Thank you for reading my mind.
We all set?
Any other questions on?
I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Department 435, the transfer station, the amount of $944,000.
That includes.
Oh, that's disposal, right? I'm saying, gosh. The amount of $98,069.82 as recommended by the town administrator and board of selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it.
Um,
Have the mowing bids come in.
yeah, that's-
Yeah, yes, they did. I believe, I think it's for fiscal year 26, it's 20, it came in at, the one we're going, 28,696.
I think so. So the total for that department is actually $29,603.50.
instead of the 32,
Yes.
so it's 29.
603.
53.
50.
So the bid on the mowing actually went down?
Yes,
And can you give me that number again, please?
29,000.
No, the.
Just the
bid
mowing.
On the mowing.
28,696.
Thank you. Wow. Don't see that every day.
No. We had five bidders.
We stayed with the same person.
Yes.
That's great.
And it was the lowest responsible bidder.
That's great.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 491, other environmental cemetery, the amount of $29,603.50 as recommended by the town administrator.
Second.
Just to clarify, not as recommended by the town administrator.
Because the amounts are different on here.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. 510.
Opens.
Yep.
I'll make a motion for Department 510 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation from sum total of $127,341.96.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 541, council on aging.
I'll make a motion if there's no discussion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion for Department 541 to recommend the town administrator's recommendation and the sum total of $176,865.05.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. Veteran Services, 543.
I make a motion.
What's the, there's a difference between the Board of Selectmen and your
$200.
office?
Yeah, the selectmen, what's included in the salary of the office manager part-time is an overlap to train. So the selectmen decided to eliminate the overlap. That's where the approximate $3,000 difference.
Yes. Okay.
But is that office manager only in Veteran Services? Or are they in other?
It's split, she's split between veteran services and building.
Is that training in Jim's budget as well?
think they realized that.
Okay.
The budget, because it didn't come up on his.
Yeah. Jim's doing the training then.
That's
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 543 Veterans Services, the amount of $116,191.55 as recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Guys have it. Congratulations, Jim.
We don't need to vote on 549, correct?
Correct.
Right.
So in the library department, the question had come up where, how is the minimum calculated? So the state minimum, they take the past 3 years of appropriations, the average of the last three plus 2.5%. So that's how we came to the 315,602.
Okay.
So the BOS just reduced it to the state minimum.
Okay. And that just, yeah, taking $600 out of the professional and technical,
Mhm.
and we're still in compliance.
Yes, and I double checked that.
I'll make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 610, the library, the amount of $315,602 is recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I do have just one question, and this goes back to the data processing. So like website security and website domain are listed in the professional and technical. That wouldn't be part of data processing? No, because that's all software and.
Right, it's.
Okay.
Various software.
We bought a data insurance policy is what we did, right? Not necessarily.
That covers the whole town, every department?
Um, I believe that does. I have to look into it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's all right, I didn't know that.
Now we got the community garden, yeah,
Yep.
6:30. Any questions on 6:30?
Yeah, my only comment is just, again, I think my earlier point still stands. I understand. But dollar for dollar, the good it does.
For the $500, I'd rather have a garden.
I agree.
So who maintains the garden?
The community.
Yeah, it's like,
Volunteer.
it's volunteers. We did some of it last year. And then
Yeah.
he organizes it all and gets a little email chain going, and you can kind of tell them when you're gonna go. People kind of, when they got time, they'll go over and weed or they'll prune.
Now, Jake,
Okay.
isn't this year, I know his daughter is part of the Cub Scout troop, and I think he's gonna actually have the Cub Scouts go over there
Yep.
and maintain
For
it
the
and
community
plan.
service?
He's also very good at getting donations
Yeah,
for like the plants specifically.
right.
So, again, the $500.
And he has a big like planting day where he invites the community to come help plant. He has activities for the kids there.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of he makes
A
it a
community
big
garden.
deal. Yeah, he
It's
really
very cool.
does.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 630 Parks and Recreation, the amount of $16,200 is recommended by the town administrator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's have it. Town historian?
Make a motion for Department 690 to recommend the amount of $250.
Second.
Just to confirm, that is not a stipend.
It's not.
Get a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's have it. 91.
One.
I think the only question I had was the other supplies line item, but 5580. But I do remember vaguely a conversation around there was a project that they were doing that they were going to utilize this money for.
Right, it was. for-
They wanted a reenactment.
I think that one might be for, naming North Dayton as a historic district.
Oh,
Yes, that's what it
yes.
was. That's what it was. Yep.
It says printing brochures for the 400.
And I don't have the little historical.
Or was that the calendar too? No.
No, it was that little pamphlet
That was the pamphlet.
with the little history.
I remember there was a reason for it. I just don't remember what the full details.
I saw,
She's got $400 for printing historical brochures and office supplies.
Yeah, it's under other supplies, which is.
But I remember her conversation. They did it. Start inspection of town, and they do a brochure or walking tour. They want to grab it, but it's look. Puts up, it illustrates points of interest.
Remember that was a purpose, that's all I remember.
Would it be against the historical commission if you also said you can read this online?
right.
Um,
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
The old iPhone.
Well, there's something to be said for that. I mean,
Yeah.
pamphlets like that, people look at and discard. I'm sorry to say that, but
Don't disagree.
where online you can refer to it again and again
Get out if you want.
and print it out if you want.
And then they did reduce travel. It looks like the Board of Selectmen did down to $50, which is the discrepancy.
Yeah.
I'll let Dayton, North Dayton travel,
Those are for,
Driving around Dayton.
Yeah, we don't pay very town.
That's to hand out the flyers.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My bad. I don't know. What do you guys want to do?
I'm gonna download the brochure and print it myself.
I don't think, the clarification isn't clear. You have one thing over there and he's saying
Yeah,
something
different.
different.
Yeah,
So it's like, what are we printing?
Let me see.
Right, I've got one pamphlet from the historical society and I don't have it with me. I brought it the last time.
Now, thing that I have, it says printing historical brochures and office supplies.
Does it coincide with their celebration they're doing? They're doing the seller 250, is it for that particular purpose or is it just in general? That's what I'm saying, I don't think there's enough clarification for it.
To the best of my recollection. The general fund for the two.
It's for the celebration.
It's for the celebration.
Oh,
I know, that's what I'm asking.
No, to the best of my record, it is not for the celebration.
Oh.
No, I don't think it is. This is something different. Yeah, the recommend, this, yeah,
I would think.
we shot.
Did I say no?
National Historic Register, that's.
Maybe next year.
So if we cut out the 400 for printing, that brings us up to 590. 600. Yeah, 600.
We do 600?
I think you're 100 short. She's got 1,100 in there, right?
Oh, I'm going with Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, she's going-
1,000.
That's a reduction.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's, but.
Yeah, so let's go with your number, Sue.
600?
Yeah.
I make a recommendation, we vote to, I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 691, the Historical Commission, the amount of $600.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Cable?
Look at you not costing us. This one's an easy one. Yeah, whatever you need. I'll make a motion to recommend Department 698 in the total amount of $58,520.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Cable.
Thank you.
710 and 751.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Departments 710 and 751, the amounts recommended by the Board of Selectmen and
And
us, the amount
Oh, yeah.
There isn't much.
241,668 for 710, and the amount of $97,675 for Department 751.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, can I just make a comment on the next assessments? I don't think I gave you guys this information. But I had asked the Board of Selectmen to make their motion, to see like as deemed by the state, just because this fluctuates multiple times. So if the motion is, based on the final state budget, then that will work for our numbers.
Okay. As deemed by the state.
Mosquito comes from the state and not the county?
Yes.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 820, state assessments and charges, the amount deemed by the state, $87,346.
Second.
No, sorry. If you're gonna say deemed by the state, then there's no dollar amount, because that's the number that's gonna fluctuate.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Scratch the number.
So then does it not, but it will still go in as a dollar amount, it just won't be
It'll go in.
affected as it fluctuates, there'll be no reason for it to be loaded or anything on it.
So the motion is 820 as deemed by the state.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? County assessment's fine, though.
As the same by the state, please.
Yeah, same, okay.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Department 830, the amounts deemed by the state.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let's have it. Can I ask one question on the 9/11?
Yes,
So we pay that in July.
you get a discount paying it in one lump sum on July 1st.
So does that really, because if we're, and I'm thinking more possibly next year, if we have a reduction in force, we really are paying that after the fact? Because we're getting a bill based on our 2025 payroll, is that,
Probably, yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
so even like that, we wouldn't see a savings until 28.
yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Nancy?
Mr. Chairman, that assessment is not really based on the number of employees you currently have. It's also paying benefits for the people that have already retired.
Hmm.
And in addition, they're still operating their, I'll call it their OPEB account. They're still paying towards that. So that number is a combination of things. So whether or not the number of employees
Changes.
changes, I would be very surprised if this would go down.
Conceivably, even if there was a reduction by the time you're paying the OPEB and the retirees, it would be minimal.
The last statement I saw on all of the retirement systems in the state, I got through the Retirement Association, because obviously I'm a retired public employee. And right now, they all have set schedules. So Bristol County has a set schedule to meet a future deadline to fully fund that account. So depending on what happens, I think they will focus on doing that. So all of the communities in Bristol County could be facing the same thing, but I don't think they will reduce that amount.
Okay.
They're gonna target.
Their target's it's relatively soon, if I remember. Is it?
Well, the good thing about Bristol County is their percentage of paid up is high, whereas others are not as good, and the ones that are really awful, the state is taking over one by one anyhow.
And forcing them to pay.
If their investments don't meet the required amount or the minimum required return, then the pension, I think it's PREC, the state takes it over.
Yeah.
And they invest the money in the same accounts they use, because their accounts come in with better returns. If I can find the report, or when I get the next one, I'll share it with you,
Okay,
so you'll know down the road what's happening.
thanks, Nancy.
You're welcome.
All right, so back to
9/11. I make a motion, we vote to recommend for Department 911 retirement and pension contributions, the amount of $1,160,890.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Group health,
I make a motion that we recommend for Department 914 group health insurance, the amount of $1,466,486.54 as recommended by the town administrator and board of selectmen.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
You wanna try to lump these?
915, 916, 919, and 920, that's fine.
916 just differs between the BOS and the admin.
Oh, yeah, good call. Why?
So that was one that Paul had come to us afterwards and said that, if we were able to give any other additional money, that's one place with the Medicare contributions that he would really need it. That line had gone deficit a few years ago.
Mhm.
And it has to do with, the more overtime kind of threw that into the negative 2 years ago.
Overtime.
There you go.
So,
Do we have the money?
Do we know, has he done a calculation on based on budgeted?
Yeah.
Payroll and-
He was hoping for 100,
yeah, he was asking for 100.
he's asking for 100,000. So. What the difference between the 100.
Okay.
Do we want to do that as Board of Selectmen recommend then?
So one question, with you taking the lower end on your end, was there a specific reason?
That was the number that was originally recommended by
Okay,
the treasurer.
oh, okay. I got you. I'm gonna take Department 915 first. I make a recommendation for that I make a motion that we recommend for Department 915, group life insurance, the amount of $1,500.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my understanding is that July first, this current policy under 32B is $5,000. It's going to, as of July first, my understanding was legislation passed will go to $10,000. So I expect the premiums are gonna go up. I should say the town share of the premium. The premiums are very low, but you need to know that this is probably coming. And I think it's a total amendment to 32B. I don't think it's optional. In other words, some could accept it and some not. But that was another email thing that I got.
Because right now we have a $5,000 is.
Yeah, it's been 5,000 for, I was gonna say 100 years. It was 2,500 one time.
Okay,
But the retirees groups lobbied because you can't bury anybody for 5,000 unless you're gonna dig a hole in the back.
Unless you do it yourself. Yeah, exactly.
So.
Or use your shovel.
Same thing with the deer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something to keep in mind.
yeah,
Have you guys
one stop.
seen any premium numbers on those?
I have, and all the ones sharing information for that.
okay.
Follow up with you.
But for right now, our policies for the coming year are at 5,000.
Did we finish the motion vote on?
We had a second.
We had a second. For the 1,500.
Yeah, Peter just hasn't asked everybody for their acceptance.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So I just running some, the Medicare, the wages last year were 6.476 million. 2.5 on top of that. Then there would be another 2.5 on top of that. So FY 24 wages were 6.477, 2.5 on top of that, plus 2.5 on top of that to get us into 26. And then the Medicare rate, 1.45% would get us to 98.7. So.
98.5.
should be pretty close.
Okay.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 916 employer contributions, the amount of $98,500 as recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Go ahead, Jake.
I was gonna say, I lump these. I'll make a motion for Department 919 and 920 to recommend the town administrator's recommendations in the sum of 10,000 and 6,000 accordingly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nice have it.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Department 945 liability insurance, the amount of $266,704 as recommended by the town administrator and Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nice have it.
And then we don't need to
We do need to recommend.
Okay.
I make a motion, we recommend for Department 600 sewer enterprise fund, the amount of $411,218.43 as recommended by the town administrator and board of selectmen.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. More of my own. So last year, we approved, I believe it was 214,000 from free cash. Operating budget this year. 26, now we're spending roughly 370,000. Yeah, and obviously.
What's
Kids. Again, I just wanna, we only have what Woody and somebody else on people outside of the finance committee and Nancy here. But, any chance we get, I want to say that it's not, the budget, current budget is not sustainable.
It is not.
Nope. Changes need to be made, and we alluded to it at the beginning of the meeting. If we come here a year from now and nothing's changed, then I don't know what. Jump ship. Yeah. That's all I've got.
Yeah, because I think not only to reiterate that point, there is no, like, we're sitting here arguing over $100, $50.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, not arguing, but having discussions about that.
Yep.
This is not an inflated budget because we use zero-based budgeting. So there is really, that's the only place to go. If we want to maintain, we need to get the exclusion passed. It's literally the only way. Or you fully remove trash and then Woody riots. Right, Woody?
Our departments have
No,
research
sir, it's
budget-
not me, you know, I've done a little bit of a poll, talked to a lot of people. I talked to some more people tonight, including Myrna Santos, and she thinks it's suicide also. I don't know where the cuts need to be made, but, and what needs to be done, I think that before town meeting, we should have some more serious meetings with the Board of Selectmen, with the Finance Committee, and with some citizens. There's gonna be some tough decisions to make. And, you know, and I've told this to the selectmen that we have now and other people who thought about becoming selectmen. If you're a selectman today in the town of Dayton, you're gonna have to make some real tough decisions. And there's no other way around it. It is what it is. I talked to a lot of people today about the budget. And everybody says the same thing, you know, there's somebody's gonna have to make these tough decisions, and whatever they are, they are. And you can't keep banging the little guy. You know, and like public safety, you know, when they say public safety, nobody wants to walk that line. But, you know, look at the police department's budget, it's $1.9 million. And the overtime lines. So, you know, I know we need public safety, and I really can't comment on that department and how it's run because I really don't know. But somebody must know. And I think that they should really look into some of these bigger departments, look at the overtime. You know, the fire department, I noticed their budget was way down because we have a lot of volunteer fire department members. And with the police department, we used to have a huge auxiliary police department in town. And I don't know if anyone is aware, but we do not have one police officer in the town of Dayton now that lives in the town of Dayton. The last one just retired. So we have absolutely no police officers in this town that live in this town. You know, and you know, you got two people sitting right in front of you that make a lot of money. They're doing a great job, especially Serena. I think she's the best accountant I've seen in the last 25 years working for the town of Dayton.
Thank you.
And you know, it's a shame that they have to be there at this hour because they have a long ride home. But my point is, they don't have any skin in the game. This ain't their town. They don't know the town. They don't know the people. But they're doing a fine job and they're providing a beautiful service. But you know, there's no skin in the game. And you know, I'm married to an old swamp Yankee, and she won't say poop if she had a mouthful, but she gives me an earful every day. So, you know, it is what it is. And I think we all need to work together.
Thank you, Woody.
Agreed.
Thanks, Woody.
That's all I can say. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't know about that, Woody.
You know, hey, Ron, by the way, you forgot your phone at home.
Yeah, I know.
Because I told your wife about the trash.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, Ron's got to leave early tomorrow because he's an Uber. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Woody.
Nancy, anything?
Other than trash, do we have anything else that's, excuse me, not collective bargaining? The trash contract, do we have any other contracts or bids out? Insurance, we used to review that every year, and every couple of years we would bid it out to get better rates, quite frankly. Group health insurance, we've been with the same company for a group for quite a while.
Yeah, we went in, I think it was the second meeting, we went through that. The group health rates, because the town is in a captive program, are significantly better than the vast majority of what people are dealing with right now. The national average for group health insurance rates increases is 9.7%. I think the town was 5.
8.7, I think.
8.2, 8.7. The other communities well into the double digits.
Yeah.
We lucked out.
Yeah.
With Southern Massachusetts Health Group.
Yeah. So I know that was my first thing when I came in, was like, what, because that's what I do for a living. But the other insurances, I don't know anything about if they're in specific programs like the group health or anything like that.
I know that Peter had put out an announcement, I saw it on Facebook, I think, about getting feedback from people in the town about, you know, the trash and stuff. Do we know what kind of feedback he's received back, if any? I mean, he hasn't
I do
said.
not know. I do not have a meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Oh, good.
yeah, I'd be interested to know what the townspeople are feeling about that, you know?
Well, trash collection,
Mhm.
I gotta tell you, Peter will remember this, historically speaking, back in the early 2000s, when we were being overassessed more than $1 million a year by the town of Rehoboth at the regional district, and we were struggling. That was one thing they didn't want touched.
Was the trash.
Absolutely. Your alternative is everyone takes their stuff up there, well, you still gotta dispose of it, it's just you're not picking it up. Or everyone has one of those big
Dumpsters.
things in the front yard, you can't put them in the backyard because the trucks can't get to them.
Yeah.
You also got to keep in mind that if you're going private, you're subject to the private, whatever company that you privatize with, right? So like, they're not gonna be nice to you, like, you getting it as a town, ideally you would have more cost control than the other way, but.
Well, the other thing too is, I've said repeatedly, communities make those haulers get permits from the town.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for years. Other towns do it. It's a source of revenue. And it would help all of the people that are paying taxes and buying bags.
Yeah.
It's a standard practice. I mean, this is very common. You wanna come in here and pump septics, you gotta be permitted. But you can come into this town and haul trash to free-for-all. If you ever noticed the trucks around, there's all sorts of companies, but it's standard practice, very widespread. that if you allow trash haulers to come into town, they pay a permit fee. It's just something they do. Getting back to the insurance, I think we're still with the same company we've been with for several years, maybe 5 or more. But what we found was that by soliciting proposals from, just pick some, and they would review it, and we would end up with better rates. Or the company we were doing business with would sharpen their pencils
Yeah.
to keep this town as a customer.
Yeah, it's good practice every couple of years
Yeah.
to do it. I
The
mean,
last time it was done, the company that had it for a number of years was excluded from the bidding. There were complaints about that, but that's another issue. You know, the thing about group insurance, and we talked about the group insurance commission, and everyone's, oh, their rates are too high and all that. What people don't understand is, the group insurance commission has a menu, and your employees pick from the menu. Everyone's not in the same plan.
Correct.
And even the what I'll call the GIC plans, there were 3 levels of that with 3 different rates. The top level one that had all sorts of stuff was the highest one. And then there was like a middle one, and then there was one for people who are relatively healthy and say, I don't need all that insurance, and I want to save some money. I'll take a higher deductible because I'm young and healthy. Because every year you can change it. But they also offered, out at Pilgrim, we had Neighborhood Health, Fallon Healthcare, Tufts, there's another one. But again, everyone says, oh, GIC is too expensive because they don't understand. You're dealing with something called GIC, but there are all these companies that are in there. The GIC negotiates the rates with them. But as an employee, I mean, I was at the university, all right? I don't know how many employees they had statewide, but there were people sprinkled everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because they picked what they wanted.
Mhm.
The rate of reimbursement of the premiums was the same as far as the percentage.
Yep.
Not the dollars.
Right, the percentage is based upon the total premium,
So,
yeah.
And I know in order to do that, you have to do it far enough out, because if you're going to make a change, you've got to talk to the unions also about if you're changing a potential provider.
Yeah.
But sometimes I've also gone with the MMA. I saw a listing of that. I was surprised there were towns around here that have the MMA insurance too. But
Yeah.
one other question, and this goes back to everything we're talking about tonight. We didn't go with unemployment compensation. You're lying in here, even if there were no dollars.
I believe unemployment was moved under Department 945.
You go town, so that's the other thing, as you said, as Woody said, the hard decisions get made.
No.
There's gonna have to be, I'll just put it that way. Serena, what did you say we go under?
Yeah, I don't see it under Department 945.
Actually, I think we took out of the budget years ago because we after we got beyond that early 2000 period, and the budget was finally being allocated, excuse me, the regional district budget was being allocated according to state law, which is statutory as opposed to what was being done. That's when the $1 million shifted. And that's when we stopped budgeting, I think. Unemployment compensation.
It might be in a separate fund. I'll have to look.
Okay. Any other questions or anything? May 14th?
Yeah, we don't have to meet tomorrow now?
No, no, May 14th here, 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Be in Spain.
You be in Spain?
Ooh,
You don't want to join us?
yeah.
I don't think so.
Zoom.
Considering they're 6 hours ahead, so what time would that be? Midnight? Yeah.
Isn't
midnight.
that where they do most things in Spain?
Yeah, true, yeah. I know. My wife and I were talking about that. My wife and I were talking about that because we eat dinner at like 5:30. And we're like, oh, they don't eat dinner. You're like, we're gonna be starving. We're gonna have to buy a bunch of snacks.
Take a motion to
I
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, have it. Thank you, Cable.
Thank you.
Thank you.